Yo, it's Elut, and welcome back to the Fire Emblem Mount Rushmore. We're doing batch 3 today, and instead of explaining what this series is, like every time, if you don't know what this is and you found this video randomly, look in the description for a playlist, go watch the first video, that'll explain the whole concept behind this. But yeah, we have new categories today. I'm pretty excited. These videos are so easy and so fun to make. So, let's just start with the bows, the bow goats, as it were. I put out a poll earlier last week about whether I should keep this as like infantry bow units and then have like a separate category for mounted bow units, or if I should combine them, because in my opinion there really aren't enough notable mounted bow units to make a whole category, and it seems that the majority of people also agree with that sentiment. So, you know, we love democracy, so we're going with that. This is a combined category. As long as bows are the main part of that unit's identity, they can be included in this category here. So, the first one I'm going to talk about is one that I've always had a really big soft spot for, and that is Rolf from FE9. So, Rolf is bad. He's bad, but I love him. He's just so funny. And, like, even though it's, like, super not optimal to use him in FE9 because like 2 range is just ass, and even the double bow is like really stupid. It's a 4 range bow with like garbage might. It's really funny, and I just like him for some reason. I can't really put my finger on it. And if you've noticed in like some of the earlier videos, I kind of have a soft spot for like the green hair kiddos. Like, I think that stems from Rolf. Like, I think part of like my love for characters like Asbel or Lou is like I see a bit of Rolf in them, like at first glance. So I don't know, just an interesting thing. I think Rolf is so funny, and even though he's like bad, he's still like not even hard to have on the team. Like I always find that like my Rolfs are like insanely bulky for no reason. And I don't know, I just think it's funny. I always try to train him. There's just something special about it to me. Having Marcia, like I've said in several videos, having Marcia blow through the map while having Rolf just kind of meme around in the back is a very nice balance for me personally. So I love Rolf, dude. I'm a big Rolf fan. And then second up is probably my favorite archer sniper bow unit in the entire series. And I say his name as Shinin. I know that's probably jarring to hear that. It's hard for me to switch. I've called him that for so long. Shinon, Shinin, Shinon, I've even heard. I love this dude. He is, as a character, a huge jerk, and he has a lot of pretty fucking garbage opinions about the world. But that makes him such an interesting character, and he has a lot of interactions that like really get to me for some reason. Like I just find him so interesting. Like, because the way he deals with like Grail's death is very different than how a lot of other characters deal with Grail's death. And he takes out a lot of his anger about that on Ike, undeservedly. And there are just these scenes, like there's the scene in FE9 that I really like where he rejoins the Grail mercenaries, like after chapter 18. And you can tell he's just hammered, like he's drunk out of his mind. And he just comes up to Ike and starts like, you know, saying a bunch of shit to him, like, oh, big General Ike now, you know, just kind of being a jerk. And, you know, he thinks Ike doesn't deserve it, and he thinks Ike takes it all for granted. And after he walks away all mad, like, you can tell, like, Ike is just like, dude, like, you don't really know me at all. Like, that's I've never taken any of this for granted. Like, that's just not how it is. And that's so sad, and I fucking love it. I don't get it. But in Radiant Dawn, as a unit, I'll talk about him as a unit now. In Radiant Dawn, he is fun. Bows still aren't great in Radiant Dawn most of the time. There is something to be said for ledge control, and things like that. But the reason I like using him in FE10 is his stat spread is just straight up insane. Like, he will consistently cap like every stat with bonus XP. He's one of the few units that actually like consistently does that. Like him and Jill and stuff like that will consistently cap like every stat. And he has like one of the most fun end games ever, because the double bow, unlike in FE9, is not a meme. It is a 1 to 3 range weapon, because when he hits tier 3, he shoots bows from 2 to 3 range, and then the double bow has 1 range. And that's just insanely fun and super sick, and he is so fun to use as a unit. Definitely a big favorite of mine. The third one I have to talk about is Shin from FE6. This dude is the mounted one on this list, the first mounted one that I'm talking about. I think I'll include one other one, but it's going to be actually kind of hard to do that. But Shin is awesome. The only quote-unquote downside to using him is that you go Sakai route. Depending on who you ask, that is actually a fun thing, but I know a lot of people don't like the Sakai route, so I get it, but he is so good. Bows are actually good in FE6, and even though when he promotes he gets E rank in swords, swords are also still good in FE6. He's accurate, he hits hard, he is disgustingly fast, he has high movement. Oh man, watch out, wyverns. And then the last bit I'm kind of struggling. So if you don't know, bows are actually one of my favorite weapon types in Fire Emblem. Like bows, swords, and then like a close third being magic, I would say, are like my favorite weapons. So I would love to talk about Python. I think Python is very funny. Like I notice I'll just say like randomly, like, fine, twist my arm, and I'll be like, fuck, that's a Python quote. It's just like, I don't know. I think he's very funny. Bows in Echoes are just really crazy and really fun. I think we'll talk about him in the objective list at the very least, but I want to mention him here. I'm a big Python fan. One of the few units in Alm's squad that is actually enjoyable for me. I also want to talk about FE9 Astrid, because Astrid, bows in FE9, yeah, kinda yikes. I'll bring her up here, unless I think of someone else. Bows in FE9, pretty yikes. She starts at level 1, I believe, in Chapter 13, pretty yikes. But she has innate Paragon, which is really fun. And Paragon is good in every game. That kind of goes without saying. Double experience goes crazy. But it's especially broken in FE9 because she is one of the best classes at base, despite her stats being pretty awful, and having a pretty terrible weapon type for that game. Paragon in FE9 applies for bonus experience. So not only is it easy to do like giant bonus XP dumps on like your Marcias and stuff, but it's also really easy to just dump a bunch of experience onto her, and like for half the cost, and then you promote her, give her axes, and then she's like just an amazing unit. That's really fun. I like her character too, having sort of a sheltered rich girl kind of lifestyle, but wanting to break free of that. You know, picking up the bow to break free of that and be a little bit more normal, live a more normal life. I like that a lot. She's very, very cool. And then, yeah, so I mentioned Python. I wonder if I mentioned anyone else, because I don't give a shit really about like Midir or Lester so much. He's called Mid-Deer for a reason. I love Ronin. I could talk about Ronin. He's very funny. Selfina is interesting, but kind of nerve-wracking to use. I hate that she has a cost at base with like very low HP, and sometimes she'll just get doubled by ballistas for no good reason. That's not cool. So I don't like that, but she does give you a brave bow through an event, but I give it to someone else. I'd probably give it to Ronin or something, or Dagdar or something like that. See who else? I like Sue, but Shin is just better. He's just so much easier to use. Sue is still good. I'm not trying to discount that, but she consistently lacks strength, which is noticeable. So Shin definitely wins out there. I don't care about any of the ones in FE7 or 8. Like, not even a little bit. FE9 and 10, I pretty much talked about. Oh, no, I did forget somebody. Honorable mention, I guess. I want to talk about Leonardo. So this might be weird to some people, but I think some people will also kind of get it. I oftentimes, when I play FE10, my carry, my main sort of outlet for investment is Jill, because I think she's just the most worth it. But I find myself nowadays like the longer I play FE10, the more I kind of appreciate what Leonardo does. Yeah, he's super frail, but at the same time, he has a weapon type that can make it so he can shoot things without taking a counterattack. And also, ledge control is like pretty valuable. A lot of the Dawn Brigade maps have plenty of ledges that you, the player, get to make use of. It's not usually the case where, like, as the Dawn Brigade, you have to go up the ledge and fight things up a ledge. It's normally there are ledges there for you to use and to shoot down from. And he can do that pretty well. And then because I'm funneling most of my resources into someone like Jill, he's very easy to train, like, on the back end, and I'm not really expecting much from him. I'm not expecting him to juggernaut or anything like that. But when you give him things like Beast Foe and have his personal weapon Lunasad that gives him +5 speed, and then all of a sudden he can just kill tigers in like 3-6 on player phase, and you can wall him off so that, you know, you're not scared of him dying or anything. It's like a safe way of tackling that chapter, and I don't know. I've come to like Leonardo a lot over time. I still don't really give a shit about Edward. Nolan, it really depends, kind of like I said in the last video. But I like Leonardo. I don't think he's going to stay up here for me personally, but I wanted to mention him. I'm kind of a Leo fan, dude. I'm kind of an unironic Leo fan. I'm just debating here if I should have Python up here. It's really hard to not include him because I really like him a lot. I'll do one last little scan to see if I'm forgetting somebody important. And with Engage, like, I completely kind of missed the entire, like, Allchrist versus Etier thing. I don't really have a dog in that fight. I kind of don't care about either one. I used Allchrist on Maddening, and I just really wasn't feeling it. I don't know, maybe that's just me. I think he's funny. I like his character quite a bit. But I didn't find him particularly impressive or anything like that. I could also maybe mention Claude, but Claude is also a lord, so I don't know. I think I'll stick with this for my personal favorites, though. But yeah, Python, honorable mention. Leo, honorable mention. So the next category is thieves, and I am including rogues and assassins and, you know, what have you. Anything that is in that general category, I will talk about here. The first one I want to talk about is probably... Let me think here. It's probably my favorite one. And that is Lithus, if I can find him. He's right here. Lithus. So, in Thracia, as well as a few other games, you can steal things like weapons. In FE6, you can't steal, like, weapons, but you can steal other things. In FE9 and 10, you can steal things, but you have to have, like, a strength versus weight requirement and a speed requirement, and all that sort of stuff, and they can't be equipped weapons. Thracia is kind of like that, but it's a little bit more broken. In Thracia, if you have a build rating higher than the weight of the weapon, you can steal it, even if it is equipped. And Lithus, being a very, very, very important unit for a couple early chapters in the game, really goes crazy with that skill, because he can steal fire tomes and thunder tomes at base. So although his combat is trash and his luck is also trash, like, he will consistently face, like, low percent crit chances on things. You don't really want him to fight, but if you get to disarm a mage anyway, it's like you're basically killing them, and that's pretty insane. Stealing in Thracia also has some really weird, funny applications, because when you steal, it's not like you select the weapon you want to take and then you take it and that's it. What steal really is in Thracia, if you don't happen to know, is it's essentially initiating a trade, a one-time trade with an enemy unit. So what that means is you can take an item that they have and give it to yourself, and that can be the end of it. You could swap an item you have with an item they have, or you can simply give an enemy an item. And you might be thinking, if you haven't played the game, why would you ever want to give an enemy an item? That doesn't make sense. But it makes a lot of sense in context, because you can give certain bosses the Crusader scrolls, which means that the bosses now cannot get crit. And if you haven't played Thracia, you're still probably saying, how is that a good thing? But when you have to capture a boss instead of outright kill them, and you need to control the randomness around accidentally killing a boss with a crit, that can be super, super useful. So stealing in Thracia is just crazy, and I feel like Lifis probably has the most important stealing jobs in the game. So I really like him a lot. Stealing in Thracia is very, very fun. The second one for my personal favorite is... Yeah. We gotta talk about it. It's Soth. We'll talk about Soth first. So Soth is basically your Jagan in FE10. He's an awesome character. I've talked about his character before. When doing like the Lord category for this, I talked about Micaiah and his sort of dynamic. Soth is an amazing character. I love him so much. And as a gameplay unit, he is essential for Part 1 and very helpful for Part 3. And Part 4, he's pretty bad, but you don't really need him anymore anyways. So, you know, it's not really that big of a deal. But that's one of the more interesting takes on a Jagan. Yet I didn't feel like I wanted to include him in the Jagan tier list because him and Lifis kind of wash the Thief tier list, I think. I think like anybody else I put on this category is going to be like several steps down in terms of like power or how much I like them or anything like that. Soth is so cool. And the really fun thing about him is that in FE9, I remember seeing him and recruiting him and being like, okay, that's kind of it. I forgot about him, honestly, after like the chapter you get him. You know, I just thought it's just a one-off character, whatever. And then he plays like kind of a major role in the next game. And I'm like, hey, I kind of know this kid, but you know, he's bigger now. And he's kind of a freak of a combat unit. He's very fun. He still does stealing and chest opening and things like that. Really cool. I'm a big fan. I love him. After that, I don't think there's anyone down here I want to talk about. I'm not a Yunaka fan. You can hate on me for that if you want. I like Volk quite a bit. Not really for his thief utility as much. In FE10, he's like basically not around. In FE9, he's around a good bit, and he will steal some important things. He has Shade, which is something. But really, I like Volk's character. Even though he really is a man of few words, his sort of role in telling Ike the backstory of his parents is a very, very cool scene. And how that all sort of happened is very interesting to me. So I'm putting him up there basically just for that. I want to make that clear. And then the fourth one for me personally that I would like to talk about is, I think I could maybe talk about Pern, but like I said, I feel like a lot of times Lifis is like the more important one for like the point in the game where you have him as your thief, but Pern kind of replaces him-ish a little later in the game. So Pern is cool for thief things and a few other things as well. But I don't love him enough to put him on the top 4 necessarily. But the last one I will mention is Astor or Astolfo or whatever his official translated name is. I don't know if it is official. I don't even know if he's like in Heroes or not or whatever. But I'm used to calling him Astor. So Astor is a thief in FE6. Kath is a meme in FE6, and Chad is your thief for basically 2 chapters. After that, you pretty much only ever need 1, and you get Astor at the start of Chapter 8. And Astor has pretty decent bases. He can't promote or anything like that to Assassin, which is unfortunate, but I don't really care. I don't like training thieves all that much anyway. But in FE6, stealing is stronger than a lot of other games, since there is no speed requirement for stealing things, like there is in like FE7 and 8, and 9 and 10. It's just, you can just steal stuff as long as it's not an equipable weapon. If it's not an item that requires a weapon rank, you can steal it. And in FE6, like, that is super important because a lot of like the well, okay, I guess not FE8, but like FE7, for example, you get some items like the Delphi Shield from a chest. So yeah, you could get a thief to do that, but you could also get a chest key to do that. But no one can get the Delphi Shield in FE6 except a thief. And that things like that are so useful. There's oftentimes like random enemies in FE6 that are just holding like gems and stuff like that, which can be pretty huge. You gotta buy those boots at the end of the game, you know, that sort of stuff. So I really appreciate a lot of what he does in FE6. And thieves have kind of a cool niche in that game. But yeah, I think that's all I need to say for him. All right, so category number 3 is heals on wheels. Yes, you guessed it. We're talking about troubadour type characters, mounted healers, that sort of thing. The first one I have to talk about is probably my favorite. It's probably my favorite. It's Ethlyn. I'm a huge Ethlyn fan. Leaf's mom, baller. Sigurd's sister, baller. Pink hair, baller. She is so fun. And at first glance, on my first run of FE4, I kind of slept on her because I was like, all right, mounted healer, I like that class. You know, you're cool, whatever, you get a pass. But when I revisited FE4, I was like, let's actually train Ethlyn this time. Crit in FE4 is very funny because that is a skill. And she's actually a pretty competent fighter, I must say. Magic Ring and Light Brand kind of goes hard. And then you give that to Leaf in Gen 2. That goes pretty hard, crits and stuff. I think I gave her the Pursuit Band just for a little more consistency. That stuff's all very fun. And Ethlyn did nothing wrong, by the way. Big fan. I love Ethlyn. She's cool. Second one from the same continent is Nana. Specifically FE5. Nana in FE4 is cool and all, but I think she stands out to be more in FE5. Because with the maps generally being smaller and things like that, and just like how easily you can cheese a lot of things, like her adding charm into the mix is so helpful a lot of the time. Just like the plus 10 hit and avoid is crazy, but also she gives supports to Leaf, which can help for a few key scenarios. She's mounted, she has a personal weapon that heals her, so it's like a Nosferatu sword. I have tried the Wrath Nana Earth Sword strat. I think it's pretty fun. I wouldn't say that I typically give her the Wrath Scroll. I'll talk about that a little later in this video, what I normally like to do with the Wrath Scroll. It was because one of the things I often do is I give it to Leaf for certain things, but there's another character I'll talk about in a bit that I like to give it to too. But that alone, that utility alone is so huge, because you can stack, like Asbel is a perfect example, but the same thing applies to Homer as well, where Leaf gives support to Asbel, plus 10 hit avoid, plus 10 crit and dodge, and then Leaf has the Kingmaker sword equipped, which gives Asbel another plus 10 hit and avoid, and then Nana has Charm, which gives another plus 10 hit and avoid, which is crazy. When you stack that up against like throne bosses, that gets pretty insane. And things get a lot more consistent and a lot less scary. So that alone is pretty nuts. And then with Homer, it's a similar thing. The only difference is instead of Leaf giving support to Homer, Nana gives support to Homer. And then Charm doubles up on that, and the Kingmaker triples up on that. So that's really fun. She's a fun unit, whether you're using her to fight or not. Her staff rank is kind of garbage, but she can heal if she needs to, and that's all good. You know, she can be a designated like torch staff. Honestly, that's pretty helpful for certain chapters too, like 24X, because you really don't want to use like a torch staff with Sarah if you don't have to. You know what I mean? Like just have Nana do that or someone else do that, and then have your really good staff users, the staff goats as it were, go to work. So she's a really excellent support unit. That can also fight and can be very fun to use in both ways. I like her character quite a bit too, so big fan. I was wondering if I should include Lachesis here, and I don't think that I should, because she starts unmounted for one, even though she is like a staffer that becomes mounted, but it's like Master Knight, so I don't know if that counts. I'll just throw it out there. I like Lachesis quite a bit too. Very fun to train up and promote, I will say. Master Knight is a crazy class, but I don't think she counts here necessarily. the other one I want to talk about is from FE6. It is Clarine. So Clarine is a funny character for one thing. She's one of those characters that's like really annoying, but like isn't actually annoying. Like she's annoying in a enjoyable way for me, at least. I just think she's funny. It's funny annoying rather than just like obnoxious. Her sort of interactions with people like Rutger, I get a lot of enjoyment out of. And she's a fun unit to use. Staffing in FE6 is very valuable. And although her staff rank is not great, by the time you need her to use those high-level staffs, one, you'll probably have a few other units that can help with that, but like I said in the other video, by the time you get things like Warp, she'll be able to use it if you're using her consistently. But on top of that, I really appreciate her for the support bonuses that she gives to Rutger, specifically the Avoid and Crit bonuses. That gets pretty insane, honestly. So I appreciate her for that. And I just like the mounted utility as a whole. And even when she promotes, like, yeah, her tome rank is going to be garbage. Like, every promotion in FE6, she's going to have E rank. But at the same time, that's not even that bad because the fire tome in FE6 is already pretty cracked. So she does a lot of things that I appreciate. I pretty much use her every run of FE6, generally speaking. I think if I was going to go out of my way to like not use Rutger or something, I would maybe consider like switching her out and just using someone else, like just to try it. But I pretty much always use Rutger, and I pretty much always use Clarine as well. Very fun synergy. And then the last one, just taking a quick scan here, just in case I forget somebody in particular. But I don't think that I am. So I guess I could use either portrait for this person, but I'm going to talk about Mist. So Mist gets a lot of crap, kind of deservedly so. Like I do understand it, but I really like Mist's character. I have kind of a soft spot for her too. I usually tend to bring her to endgame in FE10, and if I have the space, and normally I will just make the space. It's a similar thing with Alencia too. Like, yeah, there are other units that deserve it more, but screw it, it's my playthrough, But I like her character a lot. I like to bring her throughout the entirety of FE10 if I can, and FE9 I pretty much always go out of my way to train her. I'm not really a big Riz fan, and Mist basically does the things that Riz does, because stabs are pretty weak overall. But Mist has an interesting niche that I think is worth talking about a little bit, in that she promotes into a mounted healer, which is huge. And she is the only other person that can help Ike fight the Black Knight. And I've talked about that fight in a few of my other videos on this channel, more in depth. But the short version is, if you want to beat the Black Knight, the real trick is not really to train Ike, it's technically to train Mist. Mist makes it mathematically viable to actually beat the Black Knight regardless of Ike's skill set, which is already pretty insane, and it is an optional boss fight, I get it. But I think everybody that plays FE9 should, try that fight for real at least once. And Mist is pretty huge for that. I just like her character. The sort of scene or whatever, I think it was chapter 8, or maybe it was like a little bit after that, where Ike tells her to like, oh, just keep hiding like in the fort, like we'll take care of this, even though they're kind of getting overrun. And like she kind of has this like emotional moment with her brother and says like, it's not fair for you to just go out and fight and like risk your life while I stay back here and do nothing. Like you were there with Dad, and I missed like the death of my father. I don't want that to happen to you. Like, that's not fair. And I don't know, I feel like that scene really got to me for some reason, and I think that's probably why I tend to train Mist in both games that she's in. I don't know, it struck a chord with me, I guess. So I really like Mist. I'm a big fan. And then Cavaliers that do not celebrate Christmas. So I'm still trying to iron out exactly how I want to tackle the Christmas Cav category, because I think that is a very important category to cover. But in the meantime, I'm going to talk about Cavaliers that are not part of the Christmas Cav duo. I'm going to avoid picking like pre-promoted like paladins for this. But like people like Finn and Franz and Lowen and stuff like that are all fair game. Even like Beowulf or Lex or whatever. What have you. Typically early-ish game Cavs that are not part of the red-green duo. And the first one I have to mention, I literally have to mention him, or I will die. It is Finn. I love Finn to death. I have thought about making a video just talking about Finn in a similar way that I made videos about Ike and Karel. I think when I really think about it, I have a feeling if I had to make like a definitive list that Finn would be my second favorite Fire Emblem character. After that, it's like, you know, maybe it's Karel, maybe it's Leaf, you know, maybe it's even someone like Melody. You know, I'd have to really, really grind that out. But after Ike, like, Finn is my favorite, dude. I love this character so much. His gameplay is great in both games that he's in. In FE4, he has Pursuit, the power of Pursuit. Perhaps you've heard of it. That's pretty damn good. And if you're not giving the speed ring in Prologue to Sigurd, you should give it to Finn. It's actually pretty useful on him. And then he gets the Brave Lance, and he becomes an absolute menace. And he's very fun, and then he still comes back in the second gen, unlike a lot of Gen 1 units. And he doesn't fall off there either. He's just a menace, and I love him. And then in Thracia, he starts out unpromoted as well, but he kind of feels like your third Jagan, as I said in the previous video, because he has a personal Brave Lance, and he is immediately like the best capture unit that you have until like Dagdar gets the Brave Axe and, you know, all that sort of stuff. He's very good with it too. But Finn is just, I don't know, dude. I could gush about this character for literal hours. I love his story. I love that he has this whole like survivor's guilt thing, and he's a very, very sad character. He's carrying a lot of fucking baggage, and he's the best dad in all of Fire Emblem, dude. He has gone through so much crap for Nana and Leaf throughout his time, and like it's so fitting to me that his personal skill, his innate skill is Miracle, because he truly is Leonster's Miracle. He's the fucking best, dude. I love this guy so much. I fucking love this guy so much. The second one, I think this one will stay up. So I'll just talk about him. Is Franz. I like Franz quite a bit. He is, for, you know, objective small reasons, like better than the Christmas Cav duo in FE8. But I just think he's fun to use. Is he Seth? No. Is he Vanessa? No. But he's kind of right up there with him, honestly. He kind of just like comes in and does what he says he's gonna do. You know, it is what it says on the box. He is your early Cav that you can train up, and if he gets good levels, you should keep using him because he's good. And I just like that. Plus, you know, fishing memes. He's a fisherman, and I love fishing memes. So fuck it, Franz. You might stay up there. I gotta think a little bit. But I like you quite a bit, buddy. And then I have to make sure not to talk about Christmas Cavs because it popped into my head. I'm like, dude, Alan, but that's a red Cav. So I can't do that. Let me see here. I would include Astrid if she wasn't like the bow one, I guess, but you know, she's already up there. And just since this seems like a good time, I am gonna try in both my personal rankings and in the objective rankings to not have repeat characters on any of these categories, especially since like certain units can kind of fit into 2 or more categories depending on how you interpret them. I'm gonna try to avoid doing that, just for the record. Third Cav. I know I made a list on my phone. I might have to reference it because I feel like I'm forgetting someone like kind of important. Ooh, you know what? We could maybe talk about Ares. I kind of like Ares too. Ares is cool. Or wait, no, that is Ares, right? That's not fucking Eldigan. Am I tripping? Hold on. I don't think Eldigan should have a portrait here. No, that's Ares. Okay. But yeah, Ares is really cool. Mistletoe is very fun. That's a cool sword. And he's kind of one of those units in Gen 2 of FE4 that is mounted and is good. Because a lot of those early units are not great. Like, Oifi's good, Seliph becomes broken, but like Lester's pretty mid. I'm not a big fan of Dermot. Dermot's pretty mid. But Ares just comes in, he has a holy weapon just right off rip. And he does work, and he's so easy to use. He's such a consistently helpful unit. I like that quite a bit. So yeah, I'll put Ares there, and I know now, after thinking in the middle of explaining that, I know I forgot someone very, very important. Very important, and I almost feel stupid. Fergus, dude. Ooh, Fergus, my dog. So, Fergus is fucking awesome, dude. He is Dermot, but not cringe. So Fergus is another very important early game Thracia unit, kind of like Lithus. It's during the same time period that Lithus is like probably at his best. And Fergus has FCM 5, which is the highest it can be in Thracia. What that means, if you don't know, is his second attack, when he doubles, takes his normal crit value and multiplies it by 5 on the second attack. That's fucking crazy. Especially when you consider that there's a character who supports him in those early chapters, which gives him plus 10 crit. And if you give him a rapier, then he already has 10 innate crit, so that goes to 20. So he is a guaranteed crit on the second attack, which is insane. Whether he's mounted or not, he is such a useful sword unit, and he's kind of a funny character too. I love his back and forth with Karen. Super cool dude. I can't believe I almost forgot him. This guy's awesome. This guy's fucking awesome. Okay, I'm gonna take a quick gander. I'm just gonna look over one more time, just in case I forgot someone really important and I get mad later. Okay, so I don't think I forgot any Cavs. I'm actually pretty happy with this list. I like these four quite a bit. I'll get the ordering a little more correct. But I did forget to mention briefly two thief, assassin type people. I'll mention Jafar. I just think Jafar's cool. He's not a super favorite of mine, but he's cool enough. I want to mention him real quick. I don't really have much to say beyond that. But the other one that I feel stupid that I forgot, because I like him quite a bit, is Yuri from Three Houses. I might actually swap him out. I'm thinking about it, but I probably shouldn't. Yuri has, like, Three Houses already has, like, excellent voice work across the board. Like, it just does, except for, like, fucking Bernadetta. I hate how they directed that that character. I'm not blaming the voice actress or anything. I know she's very talented. I've seen her in other things, but I blame direction on that one. But anyway, Yuri has the best voice work in all of Three Houses. His actor went crazy. And his character is so interesting to me. I love his fucking design. And foul play, the skill foul play, is one of the coolest fucking things ever. It's a swap warp with another unit. And then his I forget what it's called, but like for lack of a better term, like the holy weapon thing that he has, like the ring or whatever that gives him Canto on top of that, is crazy. Like I play heroes pretty casually, but I have like a core team of 4 that's like my favorite, and he is on that team for foul play alone. That is so interesting to me. Like, I don't know. I love that so much. I feel like I have to mention him. I don't think he'll stay up here. I don't know. It hurts to do that. Yuri is like maybe one of my favorite Three Houses characters. Like, the only thing motivating me to play that game again is to do like Silver Snow only using the Ashen Wolves. That's the only thing that makes me want to play that game again. But you know, Yuri's fucking cool. I feel weird that I forgot him. But anyway, final category for today is mercenaries and heroes. Kind of like with the infantry bows versus mounted bow users, I felt it was worthwhile to just kind of combine these categories. Because, you know, they basically do the same things. And like hero, like pre-promoted hero doesn't usually happen. But there are some notable ones that I absolutely have to talk about. The first of which I will start with And you probably saw this coming. It is Harkin. Harkin is crazy. I love Corel to death, but if you think I'm picking Corel over Harkin in FE7, you are delusional. This guy's insane. He has everything that's good in FE7, just right off the bat. He has crazy stats. He has 1 to 2 range. You know, good bulk, good weapon ranks. Starts with the Brave Sword. What more do you want, dude? What more do you want, simply put? On top of that, as well, another rep from FE7 is Raven. I think Raven is a very fun unit as well. He's just kind of earlier Harkin in a lot of ways. I like Raven's design. Red hair goes crazy, and like he's one of the few units in FE7 that's like I get excited about. I kind of wish he was in a different game sometimes so I could actually use him more, because I don't really play that game. But these two are both really cool. I gotta give him a shout out, dude. I have to talk about it. After that, I have to talk about, oh, my boy. I gotta talk about my boy, my dog. My dog. Where are you, my dog? I don't see you, my dog. Oh, there he is. It's fucking Ralph, dude. I fucking love Ralph, dude. So, Ralph is amazing because he's just a fucking regular dude that comes in chapter 15 and he says, hey, you guys are fighting these bandits? I'll help. And that's his entire character. And some people say that's boring. And they might be right. But I kind of love how simple that is. That's it. What more do you really need, you know? And the cool part about Ralph is he has good weapon ranks. He's a pre-promoted hero. And he's just good for the rest of the game. Like, he needs no help whatsoever. He's just cool. And if I don't give Wrath to Nana or Leaf, a lot of times I'll actually give it to Ralph past chapter 18. I'll talk about chapter 18 in a second. Because then you basically just have a second Ojan. And who doesn't want a second Ojan? That's crazy. But on top of that, on top of Ralph just being good and like so solid and does what he says he's gonna do, he is like tailor-made for the Xavier recruitment. It's kind of insane. You give him a sleep sword and you give him like some kingmakers and you know, leaf support and things like that, maybe charm. He is excellent for the Xavier recruitment because when you are going to sleep all of Xavier's like soldiers, if Ralph hits with the sleep sword, obviously he sleeps them. If Ralph accidentally crits them, he also does not kill at base, which is huge. So then you're not like, you know, bashing your head into a wall because you got to reset to get to the Xavier recruitment because you killed one of his guys before they talked to like the green units. That's a whole thing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. But Ralph is perfect for that because sometimes I worry with other units like Ojan, for example, could maybe do a similar thing if he had the sword rank for it, or maybe some other units as well. But like someone like Fergus, like you could bring Fergus in there. But I'm a little too afraid of Fergus just critting and going absolutely nuts, you know? Depending on like how good his strength procs have been. But Ralph does not kill upon a crit, and he's bulky enough also to take 2 hits without dying from those guys. Because sometimes they will also proc Adept. And if they do that, they might kill somebody else on the team, but Ralph will still stay alive. And he's just so cool, dude. I'm a huge Ralph fan. I need to meet other Ralph fans. I know they're out there, but I don't see them, dude. Ralph is so cool. I fucking love Ralph, dude. And then if I could count reverse recruitment, I would talk about OJ here because he's one of the most fun units in FE6 reverse recruitment, but that is cheating. I'm not a super big fan of Deke, oddly enough. I like his design and stuff quite a bit, but I never really get around to using him because he's like okay in the early game. I don't think he's as good as some people says he is. But then you get Rutger 2 chapters later, and then 3 chapters after that you get a hero crest. And why would you give it to Deke when you could give it to Rutger? And then at that point it's like, what's Deke gonna do for the rest of the game? By the time you get the second one, he's just not very good. I don't know. I wish I was more of a Deke fan, but I'm just not. I can't help it. So beyond that, I guess the last one I'll mention, and this is probably the weakest one on my personal list, but I do think he's pretty cool, if I can find him, is Garrick. Garrick, like all of these guys, really, just, you know, does what it says on the box. And he starts with Hero Crest in his inventory, which is also quite nice. Whether you make him mounted and give him bows, or you just make him a hero, he's just a solid unit. Like, he can't be bad. He physically cannot be bad. And that's really cool. I've heard that his supports are really excellent. And, you know, they're probably right. I have not gotten around to reading them as of yet, but I plan to someday, and I will get back to you if I read them sometime in the near future. But just pure gameplay alone, all of these guys just kind of do what it says on the tin, and I love that so much. So yeah, I think before I ramble on too much longer about something stupid, I'm going to end it here. Thank you for watching. Next time, I will bring Mithril Zenith back on as usual, and we will get Objective. And that'll be a fun video too, so look out for that. Thank you for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.